His ex-wife waved a single $1 bill in his face to mock him for being too poor to buy his son a birthday cake. But seconds later, a female billionaire placed $1 billion on the table and asked him if he was ready to become her husband. Kala Swan never imagined a single $1 bill could become a weapon. But life has a cruel way of showing the world who is truly wealthy and who is truly bankrupt in the soul. It was Saturday visitation day. Kala had barely slept. Working until 3:20 a.m. in the small workshop garage he rented behind an abandoned fuel station. The smell of engine oil still lingered in his hair. His fingernails still carried black grease even after washing. He had wiped his hands so hard that his skin was cracked. But he didn't care. Today he would see his son. Nathan was the only part of his life that still felt pure, gentle, sacred. Kala waited at the hotel lobby because Camilla insisted they meet there. She liked public places, not because she enjoyed family settings, but because she enjoyed performing. And today she came prepared for a scene. Kala was still exhausted from the night shift, but when he saw Nathan run toward him, all his exhaustion fell away. "Daddy!" Nathan jumped into his arms, and Kala smiled, forgetting pain entirely. "I missed you, champ." He lifted the boy, hugging it with the kind of love only a father who lost everything can feel. He had saved only a few small crumpled bills, barely enough to buy a tiny cupcake, maybe a single candle if he was lucky. A symbol, not the cake size. Nathan whispered shyly, "Daddy, can we get cake today?" Kala paused, heart wounded. He knew the money in his pocket wasn't enough. He mentally calculated 17 times last night. Cupcake, maybe one candle, maybe juice. He didn't have enough. He forced a smile. "We'll see what we can do, son." But Camilla heard that. She was watching like a hawk. Her hair perfect, nails shining, fake luxury brand bag in her hand. Her posture screaming, "I upgraded." She walked closer with a wicked smirk and said loudly, "What's wrong, Kala? You can't even afford a $1 cupcake?" Really, Kala stiffened, embarrassed, because Nathan was right there. Before he could respond, Camilla reached into her purse dramatically, like she was in a theater play, and pulled out a single $1 bill with 2 fingers, like it was a trash tissue. She waved the bill directly in Kala's face, on purpose. "You see this? This is what you don't have. $1. One. And you dare still act like a father?" Nathan looked confused, his small face tight, his little chest rising faster. He didn't fully understand money, but he understood shame. Kala's throat tightened. He whispered, voice trembling, "Camilla, please," not in front of him. Camilla scoffed. He needs to learn early that poverty is a curse. And you are his curse. Kala's heart cracked. Not for himself. For his son. Because humiliation thrown at a father hits the child first. Nathan's little fingers tightened around Kala's sleeve. Scared. A boy trying to protect his father emotionally. Kala bent slightly and whispered, "It's okay. Daddy's fine." Camilla leaned back, looked around like she had an audience, then flicked the $1 bill toward Kala's chest. It fluttered, floated, and landed at his feet. "That is your level." She said it like a dagger coated in honey. But something else happened at that exact second. The world shifted, because a woman dressed in white, standing a short distance away, watching everything silently, narrowed her eyes. Susan Mark. Most people in that lobby had no idea who she was, except elite. She was the kind of woman whose signature could move $800 billion worth of capital in one stock cycle. She was the kind of woman who didn't need to brag, because power is silent. She stepped forward, quietly, but with the gravity of destiny itself. And nobody noticed her yet, not even Kala. But her presence was about to change everything. As Kala bent to pick up the $1 off the marble floor, Susan took one more step forward and softly said his name. "Kala." He froze, because only 3 people in his life ever spoke his name that way, and one of them should not have known him at all. Before we continue, if this first act already gripped your chest, take 2 seconds and smash that subscribe button right now. Also, comment your country, what time it is where you're watching from. I want to see how far this story is traveling across the world. Kala froze. Hearing his name spoken in a tone that was neither pity, nor mockery, nor curiosity, but recognition, he slowly lifted his eyes, and there she was, Susan Mark. To the world, she was a young female tycoon who controlled private equity funds, black, tier investment capital, and global infrastructure bonds like chess pieces. But to Kala, in this moment, she was just a woman with eyes full of thunder. Her heels tapped the marble again, slow, deliberate. Time suddenly obeyed her speed. Camilla scoffed. "Oh, please, you know him? Really? Are you about to tell me he works as your driver or something?" Susan didn't respond. She didn't even look at Camilla. Instead, she spoke to Kala directly, like the rest of the world didn't exist. "Stand up. Don't pick that dollar." Kala hesitated. Susan's voice deepened, not louder, just more commanding. "I said stand. Dignity should not bend for a dollar bill." He slowly rose. The $1 bill remained on the floor like trash. Camilla laughed bitterly. "What? You gonna give him $2? Is this your charity moment of the year?" Susan turned her head just 1 inch toward Camilla. Her expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room did. Money in the hands of the arrogant is just noise. Camilla's lips pressed together. She felt that one in her spine. Susan's security. 2 men in perfectly tailored black suits stepped forward, not aggressively, just enough to change the energy. One guard placed a silver tray on the glass table. Stacks of sealed cash, hundreds of thousands, bands marked by bank vault certification. You could smell the crisp aroma of uncirculated currency. Camilla's jaw dropped. What is this supposed to prove? Susan didn't answer her. She took a polished black metal card from her inner blazer pocket. Not a credit card, a vault authorization card. She placed it on the tray, lightly, like a queen laying down a chess piece that ends a war. This is what power looks like when it is silent. Camilla tried to laugh, but it came out choking. "And you're giving him money? A mechanic?" Susan's head tilted slightly. Still calm, still quiet. "Mechanics build engines. They create forward motion. What do you build?" Camilla's teeth clenched. Susan turned back to Kala, her eyes softer again. "You refuse to bow, even while being humiliated. That is the rarest currency in this world." Kala swallowed. Deeply, he had no idea what to say. He couldn't even fully breathe. Susan continued, "I watched your son's face. You protected his heart before protecting your own pride. Most men crumble. You sheltered." That sentence hit like prophecy. Then Susan lifted her hand slightly, a subtle gesture, and another guard brought second tray. Larger, heavier, matte black. Camilla stepped back, finally afraid. What is inside? Susan didn't even glance her way. Partnership capital. Kala blinked. "Why me?" Susan's eyes locked into his, unblinking. "Because the world keeps looking at what's in a man's pocket. I look at what is in his character." Kala's throat tightened. He looked at the stacks, but not with greed, with confusion. This can't be real. Are you pitying me?" Susan leaned closer, very close, enough that he could feel her breath. "If I pitied you, I would give you charity." She tapped the top of the second tray. "This is leverage." She tapped the vault access card. "This is respect." Then she pointed to him. "You are the asset." Nathan squeezed his father's sleeve, eyes wide, heart pounding in his small chest. Camilla exploded. "He does not deserve any of this. He is nothing. He was always nothing." Susan's eyes flashed diamond cold. "You left value because you couldn't measure it." Camilla staggered back like she had been slapped without touch. Susan slowly pulled a contract envelope from her bag. Thick, embossed, official. She placed it directly into Kala's hand. He held it like it might burn him. Susan lowered her voice. "You abandoned your engine concept when she left you." Kala froze. How did she know that? That was buried. Hidden. Camilla's eyes widened. She didn't know Susan knew that much. "Yes," Susan whispered, reading his silent question. "I've known who you are longer than you realize." Kala shook his head, overwhelmed. I don't understand. Why?" Susan interrupted, calmly, because the world made you believe you were worthless. And now I'm here to show you the truth. Kala's eyes trembled. The weight of destiny was suffocating him. Susan stepped even closer. This is not the world punishing you anymore. This is the world correcting itself. Silence. Heavy. Electric. This lobby, this moment, this floor will become the point where two timelines collided and merged, and destiny changed direction. Susan raised her chin slightly, eyes locked on Kala, and asked quietly, "Are you ready to rise?" Before we go, if you're still reading and this story has already activated your emotions, take a second and hit that subscribe button. And please comment your country plus what time it is right now. I want to see where this story is being watched across the world. Kala felt his chest tighten, because the way Susan spoke his name, the way she looked at him, and the way she hinted that she knew him from before, something in his memory stirred. Something old. Something buried under years of pain, grease, debt, exhaustion, and survival. He stared into her eyes, and suddenly, a flicker of an old memory flashed. A garage, a leaky fuel valve, gas spilling fast, a girl coughing, and his own hands dragging someone out of a deadly gas leak before an explosion. But that was years ago. A charity repair day. He saved a young woman who was panicking near the back of the garage. He coughed for 2 hours after that rescue. He never knew her name. But now, Kala stared. Susan stared back. Camilla looked between them, confused, because this moment felt too intimate for her to interrupt. Susan leaned closer. Her voice was soft, like memory and confession had wrapped into one. "You saved my life long before I ever had the power to return the favor." Kala blinked, stunned. Camilla gasped, but not because she understood. She gasped because she suddenly realized she was out of the narrative. Susan continued, "You pulled me out of that fuel, drenched repair pit. You risked your lungs, risked your life, and didn't even ask for a thank you." KHLA froze. That memory, that day, he never connected it to her. But yes, the girl he dragged out of the smoke, shaking, coughing, terrified. It was her, and she remembered. Camilla shrieked, losing composure. "What? Are you trying to say this? Does nobody once saved you?" "No. Stop lying." Susan turned to Camilla, and her expression was pure sovereignty. "I don't need to lie, especially not to someone still enslaved by status symbols." Camilla flinched, because the insult wasn't loud, but it was lethal. Susan turned back to Kala. This time, her voice cracked very slightly, not from weakness, but from emotional memory. "That moment changed my life. You thought you saved a girl. You didn't. You saved the future I am living today." Kala swallowed hard, speechless. Susan stepped closer, almost whispering now. "I once swore that if I ever found you again, I would repay you in a way worthy of the risk you took." The lobby was silent. Everyone's breath was held. This wasn't business negotiation anymore. This was destiny bending around two people who crossed paths twice. Once in desperation, now in power. Susan's eyes hardened suddenly, still returning to her voice. "I didn't step in today because of pity. I stepped in because debt, real debt, must be honored." Kala's heart shook. This woman was not giving charity. She was closing a loop in fate. Even Nathan sensed a shift. The little boy looked between them, sensing something deep was happening, even if he couldn't understand it. Camilla tried one last pathetic shot. "He is still nobody. Saving you doesn't mean he deserves billions." Susan turned slowly, like a queen turning toward a peasant who dare breathe toward her throne. "He deserves more than you will ever comprehend." Camilla's mouth trembled, because power wasn't debating her anymore. Power was dismissing her. And nothing hurts an ego more than being ignored. Susan continued, still looking at Kala. "I remember the smell of gas, the panic, the choking, the fear. You didn't run. You didn't hesitate. And you saved me, not because of who I was, but because of who you were." Kala's eyes burned with silent emotion. You could see his chest rise as his breathing struggled to remain steady. Everything in his life that once hurt, every humiliation, every unpaid bill, every sleepless night, every failure, every insult, suddenly rewrote itself into meaning. This wasn't random. This wasn't luck. This was a loop closing, a timeline correcting itself. Susan leaned in, so only he heard the next line. Today is not the day you rise. Today is the day you remember you were never low. Kala's lips parted in shock. That line, it broke something, but in the healing direction. Camilla stared, speechless, trapped in her own disbelief. For the first time, she realized, she didn't just lose material wealth when she left Kala. She threw away the only man in her life who would ever protect her honestly, without transaction, without agenda, without calculation. But now it was too late. Her voice cracked. Kala, don't listen to her. She's manipulating. Susan raised her hand, gently, and Camilla's voice died, because there's a silence that commands obedience, and Susan owned that silence. She looked at Kala one more time. You saved me once. Today, I begin returning the favor. Kala exhaled, as though his ribs had been unclenched after years of contraction. He whispered, barely audible, Thank you. Susan smiled faintly. Don't thank me yet. And then she gestured sharply with her hand. Two more security officers stepped closer, bringing forward another sealed document pouch. The room's tension intensified. The stakes had just increased. Fate wasn't done. It was just beginning. Susan pointed at the document pouch and calmly said, This is the beginning of your return. If your heart is fully inside this story right now, support us by subscribing. And drop a comment telling me your city plus the exact time right now. I want to see how many different time zones are watching this moment of destiny unfold together. While destiny was shifting in the lobby, somewhere else, across the city, another scene was unfolding. Camilla's upgrade was not what the world thought. Yes, she dressed in designer. Yes, she carried a luxury bag. Yes, she posted 5-star dinner photos on social media. But she did not own any of it. Behind closed doors, her rich boyfriend, the one she left Kala for, was not a millionaire. He was a parasite. His name was Damon Ricks. He was the kind of man who wore a Rolex he didn't buy. The kind of man who flaunted rented houses. The kind of man who used women as financial life support. Camilla walked into his penthouse, angry, shaking. Damon, you won't believe what just happened at the hotel. Damon looked up from his laptop, annoyed, as though she interrupted something profitable. What? Camilla paced back and forth. That billionaire woman, the one people write about in Forbes, she just humiliated me in front of everyone. She placed money, stacks of money, and offered Kala something. Damon paused, and the moment he heard that last part, his entire mood shifted. He stood up slowly, eyes narrowed. What did she offer him? His tone changed. He wasn't jealous. He was calculating. Camilla sensed it immediately. I don't know. Some business document. She said something about partnership capital, equity, investment. Damon's jaw tightened. That word, equity, meant everything. Did Kala ever invent anything? Damon asked, suddenly sharp. Camilla hesitated, nervous. He used to play around with mechanical designs. Some stupid engine model. He kept a sketchbook. Damon stepped closer, eyes hungry now. You never showed me that book. It wasn't important. He grabbed her chin, roughly. It is important now. His voice was low but threatening. Camilla tried to stay confident. Look, Kala's a loser. He quit that stuff. He barely pays rent. He can't even afford a $1 cupcake for our son. Damon smirked. And that is exactly why I need that notebook. Camilla's stomach twisted. Why? He exhaled, irritated that she even asked. Because bank investors are watching that concept. I pitched it before, and someone told me a similar engine prototype existed somewhere in the city. I thought it was from a large firm. But now, you're telling me it belongs to him? He grabbed Camilla's purse, almost ripping the strap. Where does he keep it? I want a notebook. Camilla swallowed, heart pounding. She never cared about Kala's inventions before. She assumed they were just childish fantasies. But now, But now she realized Damon wanted him. Not her. Damon didn't want love. Damon wanted intellectual property. He wanted Kala's idea. Camilla sank onto the sofa, stunned. For the first time, she felt fear. Fear because she realized she wasn't in control with Damon. She was a tool, a stepping stone. Just like she used Kala, Damon was using her. The irony snapped back like a slap. Her shiny fake, upgrade lifestyle was a borrowed illusion. The dresses were bought with someone else's money. The apartment was rented under someone else's name. She was not on top. She was being played. And now, she finally understood. You don't climb up by stepping on someone with a pure heart. You fall. Hard. And destiny had just opened the trapdoor under her feet. As Susan's security prepared the signing documents, Kala still hadn't fully processed the weight of what was happening. The same world that mocked him was now repositioning itself under him. Nathan held his hand, eyes glowing. He whispered, "Daddy, are we going to be rich like her?" Kala knelt and smiled, gently. "No, son, we are going to be respected." Susan watched that moment, and it confirmed her decision even deeper. He didn't crave money. He craved dignity, and that was more valuable than any currency. Damon stood over her, voice sharp. "You're going to get me that notebook from him. I don't care how. Make him trust you again. Cry, pretend, manipulate, but I need that engine blueprint." Camilla whispered, trembling, "He won't give it to me." Damon leaned down, eyes cold, then, "Take it." Camilla froze, because this wasn't a relationship. This was exploitation. She was now being ordered to steal from the very man she once told was worthless. Her world was collapsing in silence, and she didn't even know how fast everything would crumble soon. Back at the hotel lobby, Susan turned to Kala, voice calm but powerful. "Kala, do you want your company back?" That sentence felt like thunder striking stone. "Your company," she repeated, because that engine idea, that was his company. He didn't lose it because he was incompetent. He lost it because he was emotionally destroyed. And now, he had the chance to reclaim everything. Kala lifted his chin, destiny in his eyes now, and he answered, voice steady, "Yes." Susan nodded, slowly, and said, "Then we begin today. Before we go deeper, tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from and what time is in your city right now? And if you're feeling the story so far, take 1 second and hit subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling stories that move hearts like this. Kala wasn't used to sitting at a table where the money being discussed didn't belong to someone else. He wasn't used to being the one who owned the leverage. For years, he had been the man standing outside the glass, watching wealth move behind doors he could not open. But today, he wasn't outside. He was at the table. Literally. Susan sat across from him, one leg crossed over the other. Posture calm, not rushed, not desperate, like a woman who already knew the outcome of the future she was authoring. The black document pouch, the one that held the next chapter of his destiny, was between them. Security guards stood around them with quiet efficiency. But Kala didn't feel threatened by them. He felt protected. Camilla watched from a distance, frozen, like a ghost, horrified but unable to walk away. Every piece of her arrogance was falling off her like loose paint, because she wasn't the main character of this moment. She wasn't the director of fate anymore. She was a forgotten footnote. Kala took a slow breath. He looked at Susan, eyes steady. "What exactly are you offering me?" Susan tapped the document pouch gently. "Ownership." Kala frowned, confused. "Ownership? Of what?" Susan slid 1 page toward him. It was a share allocation certificate. It had his name on it. 40% equity in a new engine's R&D division. Kala blinked, stunned. This must be a mistake. 40%. Susan shook her head slightly. No mistake. Engines don't just need capital. They need the mind that created them. Kala stared, unable to process this level of validation. "My mind?" Susan leaned forward, eyes sharp, voice precise. "Everything starts in the mind. That's where the world is invented." Kala felt something tight in his chest, something like a dam cracking, because for the first time in years, Someone wasn't just talking at him. Someone wasn't just tolerating his existence. Someone wasn't just giving him charity. Someone was elevating his intellectual worth. He swallowed hard. But this is too much. I'm not a billionaire. I'm not from your world. Susan lifted one hand gently, stopping his sentence. My world needs men like you. Kala's breath froze. Susan continued. People who have power but never bow to it. People who don't sell their soul when their pockets are empty. Her voice softened, but her words hit like diamond. Men who stay good, even when the world is cruel. Kala's throat tightened. He wiped a small tear before it fell, but Susan noticed it. She didn't pretend she didn't. She understood that this was a moment where a man's broken confidence slowly reassembled itself. Nathan looked at his father, eyes wide, like he was witnessing something divine. Daddy, he whispered, you're a superhero. Kala smiled at his son, touched the boy's cheek. No, son, I'm just a man trying to be better. Susan's voice cut gently through that moment. Then accept this, not because you need saving, but because you deserve partnership. Kala stared at the paper again. 40% equity. Not debt, not salary, not a role. Ownership. Camilla trembled, because she was watching this, live. And in that moment, she realized something she never considered. Kala was not unworthy. She was simply blind. And she had thrown away a man whose heart was more valuable than any luxury brand she chased. The pain of that realization hit her like a whip, but no one looked at her anymore. She was invisible now. The spotlight had left her permanently. Kala looked up at Susan, voice steady. I accept. A hint of satisfaction flickered in her eyes. She snapped her fingers once. Quietly, security stepped forward, opened the matte black case, took out the final partnership contract. Susan spoke like a CEO sealing a deal with fate itself. Prepare the contract. Security nodded, immediately moving into motion. Camilla gasped silently. This was no longer a possibility. This was actually happening, and the world was shifting permanently. Susan slid the final signature pen toward Kala slowly and whispered, the day you thought was your lowest is the day your empire begins. As we go further, tell me in the comments, are you emotionally invested in Kala now? And if you are still locked into this story, hit that subscribe button right now. It helps us know this story deserves to continue to the world. People don't realize something simple. Courtrooms don't just decide cases. They expose truth. And the courtroom that morning became the arena where truth finally ripped through lies like wildfire. Kala never liked courts. Not because he feared judgment, but because he hated how strangers in suits had the power to decide private matters. But this hearing was different. This wasn't Kala versus Camilla. This was character versus manipulation. This wasn't about custody battle. This was about whether the legal system would validate the humiliation of a father in front of his child, or correct it. Kala walked into the courtroom with calm dignity. Not everyone realized something, but something had changed in him. Ever since Susan looked him in the eyes and said, today is not the day you rise. Today is the day you remember you were never low. Kala's bones felt stronger. His breath felt deeper. Confidence no longer needed to be acted. It was there naturally. Nathan sat with him, holding his hand. Because the judge approved the child a witness, children can sometimes attend if the case involves emotional abuse evidence. Camilla walked in wearing the most expensive outfit she could find, because she believed fashion equals power. Her lawyer whispered something at her, but she wasn't listening. Her eyes were locked on Kala, full of confusion, because she still couldn't understand how the man who was humiliated yesterday walked in today like a king. Damon didn't attend. He vanished that morning, busy trying to save his fake financial empire before the feds finished sniffing around him. So Camilla was alone. For the first time since she left Kala, she had no man as backup. Cold eyes, sharp presence, zero tolerance for nonsense. He opened the case folder. Case number. This is a custody adjustment hearing between Ms. Camilla Swan and Mr. Kala Swan. He looked at both parties. We're going to determine whether either parent has inflicted psychological harm on this child. Camilla giggled slightly. like she found that ridiculous. Your Honor, the harm came from poverty. The boy deserves a better environment. The judge stared coldly. Ms. Swan, poverty is not emotional abuse. Humiliation is. Camilla swallowed. Her lawyer tried to step in. Your Honor, we have no evidence of. The judge raised a hand. Actually, evidence was submitted this morning, and it's quite disturbing. Camilla's heart dropped. What evidence? Then the courtroom door opened. Four Susan's legal attorneys walked in black suits, polished, silent. They placed a small black monitor on the legal presentation table. The judge nodded. Play the clip. They hit play, and the lobby footage appeared. The entire hotel CCTV captured it. Camilla waving the $1 bill at Kala. Camilla calling him a curse. Camilla humiliating him in front of Nathan. Camilla laughing while her son cried silently. It wasn't just evidence. It was a mirror held up in front of evil. Camilla's entire body trembled. Her lawyer covered his face because he knew this case was over. The judge stared directly at Camilla. This is emotional abuse, not just to the father, but to the child. Camilla stuttered. That was, he deserved it. The judge slammed his gavel. Enough. Silence. Ms. Swan, you humiliated the father in front of the child. You used public shame as leverage. You used money as a weapon. This courtroom considers that toxic, manipulative, and deeply harmful. Kala didn't move. He didn't celebrate. He didn't smirk. Because this moment wasn't about revenge. It was justice. Susan watched quietly from the back seat of the courtroom. Nobody in the courtroom even knew who she was. Yet she was holding half of the economy in her phone. The judge then turned to Kala. Mr. Swan, do you feel your son deserves to grow in a safe environment where love is not a bargaining chip? Kala spoke softly. Yes, absolutely. The judge slammed the gavel again. This court hereby awards full custody to Mr. Kala Swan. Camilla collapsed into her chair, hands over her mouth, eyes wet, shock swallowing her. Kala closed his eyes, one tear escaping, and hugged Nathan. Nathan whispered through a smile, Daddy, we won. No son should ever have to say those words in a courtroom. But this world isn't always kind. Sometimes victory is forced through pain. Susan stood up silently and began walking out because she knew the battle was won. Kala turned slightly, just in time to see her leaving. He understood. She didn't step in to be seen. She stepped in to ensure this moment happened, and then quietly left. Power doesn't need applause. Power doesn't need credit. Power simply does what must be done, then disappears. Kala lifted Nathan into his arms and whispered, You're safe now. You're home. Pause for 1 second. If this courtroom moment made your chest tight, hit that subscribe button right now. And comment your city plus current time. I want to see which parts of the world care about justice as deeply as you do. While Kala walked out of the courtroom holding his son, walking into a future that finally felt like his, Camilla walked out into a completely different reality, a reality collapsing underneath her. The world she built with lies and fakery was about to implode in less than 72 hours because the man she had placed all her hopes in, the upgrade she left Kala for, was not a bridge to wealth. He was a gateway to ruin. Damon Ricks, the so-called millionaire boyfriend, wasn't the courtroom. He spent the entire previous night awake, burning through burner phones, contacting offshore contacts, deleting files. Somewhere around 48 hours earlier, one of his fake loan funnels got flagged. And all it takes is one flagged asset account to trigger a chain reaction in the system. By sunrise, multiple agencies were circling him. And by midday, agents stood in his penthouse foyer. They had warrants. They had financial tracing proof. They had testimonies. Damon didn't even run. He froze. Because cowards don't flee like wild animals. They freeze like glass rodents. Camilla walked in just as the agents were leading him away. Cuffed. She screamed, "What is this? Why are you arresting him?" One of the agents turned to her. He's being detained for fraud, identity theft, and impersonation of registered investors. There are over 40 victims. Camilla's legs went weak. Wait, identity theft? Fraud? The agent asked a question calmly. Ma'am, do you have any involvement in any of his transactions? Her soul jumped out of her skin. And no, I didn't know anything. It didn't matter if she was innocent. Once you're close to a criminal, you are a suspect before you are a victim. Her phone buzzed. Bank notifications. Account locked, funds suspended for investigation, security hold placed. She gasped. Her card stopped working. Her assets frozen. That fake luxurious world collapsed instantly. She wasn't rich. She wasn't upgraded. She wasn't powerful. She wasn't loved. She was nothing more than the broken scaffolding of Damon's con game. Camilla returned to her apartment. She tried to breathe, tried to calm down, but then she saw her landlord at the door. Your rent is overdue. We're giving you 72 hours to vacate. Wait, what? I thought Damon paid. He paid with stolen funds. Her legs trembled. She fell onto the floor, shaking, crying, breath choking. She had mocked Kala for being poor, but now she didn't even have the right to call herself average. She was below broken. She had no home, no money, no respect, no man, and worst of all, she lost her son. She did not even lose Kala. She lost the best version of her life, because she threw away the man who once fought for her with everything he had, while choosing a man who would never sacrifice anything for her. She cried, loud, primal, ugly. Kala, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But you cannot apologize to destiny after you destroy your own blessing. And the harsh truth is, some losses are permanent. Camilla tries to crawl back. 3 days later, she finally found Kala's workshop. He was tightening bolts on a test platform engine. Nathan was sitting nearby drawing cars on a small sketch pad, relaxed, happy, safe. Camilla stood at the door. Her voice barely escaped her throat. Kala. Kala paused his wrench. He didn't look at her. He didn't turn. He just answered calmly. Yes. Camilla stepped closer, trembling. I lost everything. Kala tightened the last bolt, placed the wrench down. Now he looked at her, not with hatred, not with revenge, just distance. Camilla, I sincerely hope you rebuild yourself one day. She gasped, crying harder, but not through me. Her knees buckled. She fell right there, crying on the concrete floor. Please, please, I was wrong. I didn't know. I didn't see. Kala shook his head, gently. Some people don't recognize gold until they lose it. But Susan saw what you ignored. Camilla sobbed, her tears at the floor like shattered glass. He stepped away, toward Nathan, lifting his son into his arms. That simple act, turning toward his child, instead of turning back to his past, was a moment Camilla finally realized. Kala had become a door she no longer had the right to knock on. Kala kissed Nathan's forehead and said, We move forward now. Before we continue, pause. If this ACT's hit you hard, especially seeing karma unfold, take 2 seconds to subscribe. And comment your city plus current time. I want to see where around the world people believe that emotional abuse always comes back with consequences. Some rises are loud, explosive, public, but Kala's rise was different. It was silent, steady, built brick by brick, not for applause, but for purpose. Because once the engine idea was drafted into an official corporate research division under the Mark Global Industries umbrella, everything moved fast. Faster than even Kala expected. Kala stood in a huge glass research floor, overlooking the entire city skyline, the kind of space he used to only see in posters and business magazines. Now, he walked inside as a CEO owner, not an employee, not a junior tech, not a mechanic covered in oil, but a man who would be signing off on $1 million research expenditures. He rolled his hand over the polished steel prototype casing of the first test module, a renewable micro engine, lightweight, fuel smart, market redefining. And what was insane, this design was his, from years ago, drawn on a cheap notebook in a tiny room while Camilla was sleeping beside him scrolling through Instagram, pretending to be better than the world she had never earned access to. He created this before he ever knew billionaires noticed him. He just never believed that his ideas had the right to exist outside his imagination. But now, those same ideas lived in corporate budgets bigger than some banks. And Susan made sure the world saw Kala, not as a project, but as a partner. She held meetings with him, not for him. She introduced him not as a man she helped, but as the engineer who built the foundation. For the first time, Kala got invited to a board table and not as a servant. Global investors flew in, Italians, Singaporean funds, Dubai Energy Consortium reps. He was a man they asked questions. He wasn't a background character anymore. He was a center of gravity. And with each meeting, his confidence settled more into his bones. He was now shaping industries, not fixing broken engines in a back alley. And Nathan, oh Nathan, he was living his best version of childhood now. He had art tutors, science mentors, better health care, better environment, better everything. But even with all the luxury, he still loved drawing engines and cars. Like father, like son. Over the next 2 weeks, something else happened. Quietly, like sunlight warming the earth unnoticed, Kala and Susan became close. Not rushed, not forced, not reward love. Real closeness. It grew slowly, the way strong things should grow. In the evenings, he would visit her office not as a businessman, but as a friend. She would take coffee with him not as CEO, but as a woman who found peace in his silence. Because Kala wasn't obsessed with her wealth, and she wasn't attracted to his success. He had something wealth could not buy, humility with spine. She had something power rarely possesses, power that nurtures, not dominates. Their chemistry wasn't fireworks. It was fire. Steady, controlled, warm. One afternoon, while they were reviewing projections for the next test phase, Nathan ran into the room laughing with his drawing. "Daddy, Mommy, look what I drew." He spoke so fast, so excited, he didn't realize what he said. Kala froze. Susan froze. Nathan repeated it. Innocent, pure. Mommy, look, Daddy's engine is growing wings. Susan looked down, and in that instant, everything in her heart collapsed inward. She wasn't his biological mother. She didn't try to replace his mother. She didn't force that role. She simply loved him, naturally, instinctively, gently, like a woman who knew what it meant to be unloved as a child. Kala watched the way her eyes softened, and something in his heart cracked in a good way, because at that moment he saw it. His son already chose her, not because of wealth, not because of gifts, but because she made him feel safe. Susan knelt slowly, face level with the child. She placed her palm gently on his cheek. "Thank you, Nathan." Her voice trembled, not from weakness, but from emotion she rarely allowed to surface. She kissed his forehead. Then she stood back up, eyes still wet, and whispered to Kala, not loud, but audible enough for truth to enter the air. "Kala, I love you." He inhaled sharply. That was not a business sentence. That was a heart sentence. The kind that ends one life chapter and begins another. Kala stared into her eyes, unable to speak, because his heart was full for the first time in his entire life. If this moment between Susan and Kala touched your heart the way it touched mine, take 2 seconds right now to subscribe. And comment your city plus time zone. I want to see how far around the world this love story has reached. Kala stood alone near the tall windows of Susan's penthouse office that overlooked the city skyline. Night lights below, like constellations that had fallen to earth. He held the engagement document in his hand, the one Susan's lawyers had prepared, not because he asked for this, but because she wanted him, not as a charity case, but as a partner, a real equal partner. Yet his heart was trembling, not from fear of love, from fear of comparison. He whispered softly to himself, "Can a man like me really stand next to a woman like her?" He remembered oil stains on his hands from the workshop, while she dealt with boardroom memos worth billions. He remembered saving tiny crumpled bills just to buy a single cupcake, while she placed stacked trays of cash on a hotel table, like it was nothing. He remembered being called a curse by the woman who once promised to love him. He remembered humiliation, But then he remembered something else. Nathan, his little boy, who now slept peacefully, protected, smiling again because he finally felt safe. And then it hit him. Maybe the real measure of a man isn't what he has. Maybe it's what he protects. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and when Susan walked toward him, dressed simply, no diamonds, no display of wealth, just a woman wanting a connection, Kala turned to face her fully. Susan spoke gently. Kala, love is not a financial equation. Power chooses character, not bank balance. Silence. Then Kala nodded slowly. The fear fell away, and for the first time in a very long time, Kala felt equal, not because Susan had money, but because she saw value in him that money couldn't buy. He said quietly, "Yes," a single word, but it changed the whole timeline of his life. Susan reached for his hand. No audience, no show, just sincerity. They decided the wedding would take place in the exact hotel lobby where he was humiliated, the exact same marble floor. So the wound would become the victory. So history could be rewritten on the same tiles where he was shattered. The location where Camilla mocked him would become the location where destiny crowned him. And as Kala and Susan stepped into that hotel lobby that day for the final arrangement, the automatic sliding doors opened and the entire place gasped in shock. Not because they were surprised to see Susan, but because of what they saw behind her. Rows of elite guests, power players, global tycoons, and the media filling the entire lobby. Every camera turned. Every person stood. The man who was mocked for not having a single $1 bill was about to walk the same floor as a husband. To the woman who saw his worth. If you're still watching this scene, do you think Kala made the right decision? Before we enter the final act, comment your country plus what time it is right now. I want to see how far in the world this moment is being felt. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please take 1 second and subscribe, because that tiny click might be the small act that helps us keep creating powerful stories like this one. The day that once defined Kala's humiliation had become the day that redefined his worth. The hotel lobby, once filled with gossip, mockery, and judgment, now gleamed under golden chandeliers. Cameras flashed. The marble floors reflected light, like they were made of glass. Guests whispered his name. Kala Swan, the man who had been called a failure, now walking down the same aisle where he was once insulted. Susan stood at the far end of the hall, in a flowing white gown, elegant but simple. Her gaze fixed on him, calm, proud, in love. She didn't see a mechanic. She saw the man who refused to let money break his soul. The orchestra began softly, a live string quartet filling the air. Nathan walked ahead, holding the rings, his small tuxedo slightly oversized but adorable. And everyone smiled because they could see what love had restored. Camilla was there too, but not by invitation. She stood near the back, hidden behind a column, her makeup smudged, eyes trembling with regret. She could barely recognize the man she once mocked, the man she discarded for a lie. Kala passed her without stopping, without hate, just calm peace. Because real success doesn't need revenge. It only needs healing. When he reached Susan, they faced each other, both silent for a moment, letting the sound of a billion heartbeats echo through the hall. The officiant spoke, but it was Susan's voice that carried the real vows. You once said, "Daddy doesn't have $1 today, but someday I will." Kala, that day is today. Not because you gained wealth, but because you never lost your worth. Kala's eyes filled, not with tears of sadness, but with victory. He whispered, "And you taught me that love isn't measured by currency. It's measured by courage." The room went still. Then the officiant smiled. "You may now kiss your bride." Kala leaned forward, and for the first time, on the exact marble floor where he was humiliated, he kissed Susan. The applause thundered. Guests stood. Photographers rushed. Nathan clapped with both hands, shouting joyfully, "That's my dad!" And somewhere behind the crowd, Camilla covered her face. Shaking as tears slipped between her fingers, realizing too late that she had lost the only man who ever loved her for real. The media headline the next morning would read, "Billionaire CEO marries mechanic." Same hotel where his ex mocked him, but behind the headline was a truth even deeper. Sometimes destiny delays to test your dignity, but when it finally arrives, it repays in full. Kala smiled, holding Susan's hand, their son between them. Three souls who had turned humiliation into history. He looked up, whispering to himself, Daddy doesn't have $1 today, because now I have everything. If you've made it to this moment, you felt every emotion this story carried. Backhand index pointing right, comment your country plus what time it is right now. I want to see how far this story traveled around the world. Speech balloon, do you think Camilla deserved forgiveness? Or was this the perfect justice? And if you're still watching and haven't subscribed yet, please take a second and click that subscribe button. It's the simplest way to say, keep creating more stories that inspire dignity, redemption, and power.